Hey folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, back with another discussion video. So it's been pretty quiet the past week, hasn't it? I thought maybe we'd get a blog post that goes a bit more in depth on wants and fears, since they haven't really been explained all that much, or a lot more screenshots from the sim gurus being all excited like how they were with werewolves, but that didn't happen. So that did give me a bit of time to redo my channel trailer, which some of you have already seen, and maybe even by now some of you have already seen that and decided to subscribe to my channel based on that. So if you did, thank you very much. But I did also have some time to just think about what am I most excited for with high school years and the update that's going to come along with it. So I just felt like I'd make a video about it. By the way, this is not a rankings video. This isn't some sort of like top 10 things I'm looking forward to the most. Number 1 will surprise you. No, it's just the order that I feel like. But I knew I had to talk about body hair and shaving first, because for those of you who've been watching my channel for a while, you probably know body hair has been very high on my wish list, especially when it comes to create a sim. It just feels like something that really should have been in The Sims 4 from the start. It was something I was fully expecting to return with werewolves, though that ended up not being the case. Thank goodness they did confirm before that pack came out that we were still going to be getting it soon, and it makes a lot of sense to introduce it alongside a teen-themed expansion pack where they have some aspects of puberty included, and yeah, that animation was shaving the back in the shower. I was not expecting them to go this far. I thought body hair was going to be brought back, but I figured maybe we were going to have to wait until The Sims 5 to have enable facial hair growth and body hair growth and being able to shave it off. But I'm glad I'm wrong, because that almost feels like something where you would have to continue depending on a mod to have that amount of realism in The Sims 4, but no, we're actually getting it as official content. So that is pretty neat. I'm glad I'll no longer have to rely on custom content that classify the body hair as tattoos, but now to genuinely have the different arm, torso, chest, and leg categories for body hair. Another thing I'm very excited about is the world of Copperdale in high school years, because yeah, I do wish it was bigger still. 12 lots is not a lot to work with, no pun intended. And you could basically say it's only 10 because 2 of them are used up for the high school and the auditorium. However, I can't help but be excited anyways, because this world looks stunning, and I love how, in comparison to Henford-on-Bagley, even though Copperdale still looks a bit rural, there's kind of just more going on rather than having these open countrysides that don't have as much going on. And just like with Moonwood Mill, they appear to be taking a more open world approach to it. Of course, they'll never be able to make it exactly like The Sims 3 with no loading screens at all between the lots, because unfortunately one of the sim gurus confirmed years ago that the code architecture just does not support it with The Sims 4, but at least they are making it so that these public spaces outside of the lots have more to do, so that you can do things like going to that amusement park without hitting an extra loading screen unless you're in another neighborhood. Though it is also a little disappointing that a lot of the amusement park stuff is rabbit holes, but it is interesting to see them take this approach lately, and I hope they continue doing interesting things with that, especially if they made another city world in the future that has a different approach than San Myshuno did. Another thing I'm looking forward to is the phone UI overhaul that's going to be available for everybody. I think this was long overdue. This is a bit more approachable, I think, having all these different icons and then you have all the options come up underneath them. It's more relatable to what a modern phone user interface looks like as well. Now they just need to make the phone object itself not look like a brick. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot, I'm pretty excited about the new selfie poses that we'll be getting on the phone as well. I'm really glad that we don't need Mosquito stuff in order to have more choice over the poses that our Sims do. So I think now I'll have my Sims take selfies with each other more often, because up until now, it's been something that I rarely would do. Speaking of the phone, this actually leads perfectly into the next two things I want to talk about. The first being Social Bunny. This, I'm pretty sure, is the single feature I'm most excited for in high school years. This is something I've wanted in the game for so long, and we've had something like this in the Plum Fruit mod, though unfortunately that's not being supported anymore since Arnie is retired from Sims modding to work on his own games. So this is actually coming in at a pretty good time too. But it is really nice to have this officially in the game where you can have all these messages pop up on your feed, or you can send DMs to other Sims, and based on things that have actually happened to your Sim, you can post about certain things. Like, for example, they're posting a book review or posting about travel, and having different sort of moods attached to it, and you can even react to other Sims' posts with a sort of like similar to Facebook reactions feature. I also want to talk about the other app that's being introduced with high school years, and that is Trendy, where you can make your own looks and sell them online to other Sims. And it is interesting, I think, the fact that we'll have these sorts of general style trends happening in the background rather than, say, with just the style influencer career of the base game, with just specific outfits trending that Sims will randomly wear. So I think it will add more depth in that area where it's like, oh hey, there's these kinds of things that are just happening in the background in the world that makes the game feel, I guess you could say, a bit more lived in, more realistic. What goes along well with that is the addition of fashion as a category to likes and dislikes. It is something I wanted, not as badly as food likes and dislikes, but it still felt kind of weird that there was no category for fashion previously. Even though it took a while to add, I am really glad that they have not abandoned likes and dislikes as a feature, and I hope they will add more to it, like food as I mentioned, or even having it be part of a turn-ons and turn-offs system like in The Sims 2. Though while we still probably have a while to wait for romantic attraction options, we do have sexual orientation options that are coming in the next update. So now we can actually decide right from Create a Sim whether our Sim is romantically attracted to men or women instead of having to decide that through gameplay in live mode. We also have an option to decide whether this Sim is exploring romantically or not. So you can decide like, oh yes, this Sim is definitely into women, for example, and definitely not interested in romantic interactions with men. And then we also have an option for the Sim is interested in mess around or woohoo with men or women. There is still progress that they need to make on this because it doesn't account for non-binary Sims, but I think this is still a very important step forward, and I think it is great that we have this option to decide it straight from Create a Sim. Another thing that was mentioned alongside this feature is that young adult Sims and older will be able to decide to have their close friends be woohoo partners, so that woohoo is no longer gated behind the romance bar, allowing for more storytelling possibilities. Shifting gears back to high school years itself for a bit, another thing I'm looking forward to is Prom. Granted, yes, I am still really worried about how well it's going to actually work, especially after how my wedding stories went. For what I've seen so far though, it appears Prom works pretty well. Not perfectly, but a whole lot better than weddings, and I would say even better than the active classes from what I've seen of that. And graduation, well, there was a bug that prevented EA creators from showing it off in super early access, and graduation did not appear on the live stream either. So out of the three big active events that are featured in this pack, Prom looks the most exciting to me, and it is something that I've wanted since The Sims 3, because I was so bummed that Prom was just a rabbit hole with some chance cards that popped up. I also love that you do have the different options of going with your friends to prom just as friends, or you can go all out with a romantic promposal. I know back when I was in high school, promposals were a thing. I never heard the word promposal itself, but absolutely the idea of doing something cool to ask someone out to prom. On the other hand though, I guess the more cool events they add like this to the game, the more I miss having a memory system that works like the one in The Sims 2. Because I'm just thinking about how, oh, that was so nice having that memory of how in real life I actually was prom king. But I don't know. I wonder if they could end up bringing that back, because I thought that was never going to happen. But I didn't think the last thing on this list was ever going to happen either, and that is the return of wants and fears. So that's going to replace whims. It's not going to work exactly like The Sims 2, and I'm still a little confused on a couple of the details about it. We have the three types of wants: short-term, long-term, and reactionary. And then we have one fear, which can develop from an experience that your sim has in-game. So if they experience a fire, they may get a fear of fire, or they may have like a fear of failing a test, or as I saw one of Little Simsies videos, an elder can have a fear of death. So there are things where you can actually choose to try and overcome those fears, or you can just let that fear linger throughout the Sim's life. What I'm confused about is the full extent of what Sims get when they fulfill a want, or if a fear comes true. Because from what I can tell, from what I've seen in footage so far from EA creators, is that if you fulfill a want or overcome a fear, you will get points towards the reward store, like how you do with whims. But yeah, what happens if a fear gets realized? That I want to know. I also wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit more to what your sim gets when fulfilling a want or overcoming a fear, like a buff or something. But I guess it is something that I'm going to have to play around extensively for myself to really determine whether I feel this is a good kind of different or a bad kind of different in comparison to what we had in The Sims 2. So that is pretty much it. I do wish I could have made this list a bit longer, but unfortunately, the actual high school part of the pack itself looks pretty disappointing. It's something that I've wanted for years, but especially in terms of the classroom, I think they could have had more interactions. Like, yeah, that's funny, you can prank the whiteboard, and there are some chance cards that are supposed to pop up, but what about like the ability to pass notes down? Like if your sim wants to like cheat on the exam, or maybe to pass along a love note, or throw a paper airplane at one of your classmates. Just things like that, where it could have added more entertainment to the experience overall and more drama. Maybe it is something I'll still use once in a while, but I think a lot more could have been done. And I'm also really unsure about the after-school activities. It is good there are still animations you can do out in the world, like practicing cheer or throwing the football around, but it still seems like the majority of the after-school activities gameplay is supposed to be behind a rabbit hole. I mean, I definitely understand that for things like football games, because if they were to actually animate all of that, it would be just be a nightmare. It'd be so much worse than even my wedding stories. So for an expansion pack, it seems like the active school experience could have just been done a lot more justice. I think I am going to enjoy this expansion pack in some ways. It just won't be the ways that I expected, especially considering the title High School Years. But it's also interesting that the update looks so substantial. I think my excitement for that is at least pretty close to that of the pack itself. So feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What things are you looking forward to the most with High School Years and the upcoming update? And be sure to subscribe if you'd like to keep up with my latest gaming content. I will talk to you all later, and have a great day. Thanks for watching!